Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today we will be previewing another AFC East team. I'll be talking with Dougley, who runs a Miami Dolphins YouTube channel. But before we get started with today's video, just wanted to say that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. And also, if you haven't already, call in, leave me your questions, and I'll try to get to them on the podcast dropping this Monday. Also, if you haven't yet, please check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Matt O'Leary NY, link in the description below. You can get a ton of different content over there per subscription. With the season coming up next week already, which is nuts, I'll be doing pregame live streams, articles, Q&As, a whole bunch of different stuff over there. So if you're interested, check it out. And of course, 20% off using promo code JETS20 for manscaped.com. You can get yourself something nice like the Lawnmower 3.0 with its skin-safe technology. It makes shaving a breeze. Definitely recommend checking it out. Promo code JETS20 gets you 20% off and free shipping. Get yourself something nice. Without further ado, let's get into the interview. All right, I would like to welcome on Dougley Durong from YouTube. He covers the Miami Dolphins, big Dolphins fan. Dougley, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing real good.
Yeah, thank you so much for hopping on with me. Now, where can people find your stuff on social media?
YouTube.com/DougleyDurong. You can also find me on Twitter at DougleyDurong. Essentially, if you need to find me, just look up Dougley Durong and I'll probably pop up.
Totally fair. So the Miami Dolphins had a pretty big draft. Obviously, they have a new quarterback. What are your feelings on Tua Tagovailoa, and when do you think we see him as a starter?
I have good feeling now, being that the training camp, OTAs, everything was compacted into about 40 days. Definitely hurt his NFL development. So I probably wouldn't expect to see him probably the first couple weeks of the season. I feel like Fitz is the guy who's going to be starting. But you know how Fitz is.
Yep.
You had him for a few years. But I think once he starts to get his feet under him and once he starts to get a grasp of Chan Gailey's offense, which also you probably know very well as well, he'll probably come in. I'm hoping there's a nice, good run with Fitz. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he does his thing. But, like I said, you guys as Jet fans know how Fitz is. He gets hot and then he gets very cold. And if he does get very cold, I can very easily see Tua get thrown in there and do his thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think we see Fitzpatrick to start the year as well. And unfortunately, in year two, Fitz is usually very different from year one Fitzpatrick, unfortunately to tell you that. But I think long term, it's okay to have Tua sit for a little bit and then have him come in. And is that the feeling by most Dolphins fans, or do you think people are like want to see him go right in week one?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that if he's healthy, why don't we put him out there?
Okay.
I would say it's a good 50-50, maybe even like a 60-40, where more people probably want him to sit. And then there's a good chunk of people that are like, hey, man, if the guy's healthy, get him out there, have him learning, trial by fire, do what he needs to do on the field. I don't understand why he's not out there. I'm one that I trust Brian Flores. So far he hasn't led me astray. He took a horrible team last year, won 5 games.
Right.
So if Brian Flores is feeling and Chan Gailey's feeling like, look, he doesn't really have the offense as much as we'd like him to, and they want to win games, then I can understand why they're like, let's wait a little bit longer, see what Fitz can do. And again, if we saw it last year, Fitz played horrible the first 2 games. They threw Josh Rosen out there. He started playing horrible himself. They put Fitz back out there. He got into his groove, and we did our thing.
Absolutely. So obviously, in addition to Tua, that was the big draft pick from this year. Very active in free agency as well. Which free agent do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the team this year?
Now, a lot of people probably want to say, Byron Jones. He is one of the best cornerbacks in the league that doesn't have the flashy interception numbers, but he has shut down a lot of good wide receivers. But the one that you'll be surprised that I'm going to say is Kyle Van Noy.
Okay.
He is, a big addition, especially in that linebacker group, will definitely help stop the run, help get after the quarterback. He is he's a chameleon of that defense.
Right.
And also don't sleep on the defensive ends that we picked up in Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Agba. I'm hearing very good, very disruptive things out of them out of camp.
Okay, absolutely, definitely something to keep note of. I thought you would have went Byron Jones as well because, like you said, he's the bigger name of the two. But we both of us we've seen Van Noy in New England for a long time now. We know how productive he can be.
Yeah, definitely, and he's all over the place, and that's something that Brian Flores, if you're going to play in his defense, he wants you to be that chameleon. He wants you all over the place, and we saw what happened with Fitzpatrick, Minka Fitzpatrick. He didn't want to be all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and the Dolphins tried to keep him, but you know my subscribers know how I feel about him, and I try not to talk about him because it gets me mad.
Understandable. Completely get it. You mentioned a couple of defensive ends, so I wanted to get your take on some of the positional groups that you're most confident in when you look at this roster.
I'd have to say most confident would probably be linebacker and secondary. I'm going to
Okay.
throw the secondary in a hole just because, like I said, Brian Flores likes to take corners, play them at safeties, and vice versa. Um, the defensive line is intriguing to me,
Hmm.
but I don't know how I feel about the offensive line. So I'm like, is it intriguing because the offensive line isn't doing great? But
Right.
then the offensive line is having some rushing touchdowns in camp, so it's like this so I would say probably most confident would be secondary and linebacker core.
Okay, absolutely. And then how about some that you're maybe not so confident in?
That would probably be the offensive line, only because I haven't we don't have preseason, so I
Yeah.
don't know how they're doing against a team that hasn't gone up against them every day. And surprisingly, this is going to surprise a lot of people, wide receiver. Yeah,
Okay.
we have Preston Williams, we have Devontae Parker, but then Albert Wilson was going to play slot for us. He opted out. Alan Ernst opted out. And it's like we have a bunch of young, unknown guys that need to step up. And if they don't step up, God forbid, one of our top guys gets injured, we might be in a tough spot, which, as Jet fans, you kind of know what it's like to have to depend on wide receivers that are struggling.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned the offensive line. I feel the same way with the Jets. They're going to have four new starters this year, and we have no idea what they're going to look like. They're going to be thrown out there week one against Buffalo, obviously with no preseason that's, going to come into play. And I think, all around the league, we're going to see some issues on the offensive lines to start.
Yeah, definitely. It's I've said this time and time again with the compacted off season. I expect about 4 to 5 games of just sloppy play from all 32 teams.
Yep, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Obviously, our head coach pretty well in Adam Gase. I've made it pretty clear on my channel I am not a Gase guy. What is your take on Adam Gase from when your time there and how that's kind of transitioned?
He was the first guy in a very long time that went into week 17 not needing to win to get into the playoffs. It's been, I can't even remember the last time the Dolphins cruise into week 17 and like, hey, we already clinched a playoff spot. We can rest our starters. He brought us that. He brought us Ryan Tannehill, got a little bit better. And then he got snake bitten in 2017. And then 2018, he kind of couldn't get out of his own way.
Mm-hmm.
And he pushed himself out the door. In comes Brian Flores. That is Adam Gase's biggest thing. And I've said this when he was on the Dolphins, and I continue to say it while he's on the Jets. If that man can stop being so stubborn and get out of his own way and understand that some of his things aren't working, change it up, he could be a great head coach. But the fact that he's so stubborn, like with the Dolphins, he did not want to run Kenyon Drake. He
Yep.
just kept forcing other. We had Damian Williams that he eventually pushed out, who went and won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs
Mm-hmm.
because he's so stubborn. So if Adam Gase can get out of his own way, he'll be a great head coach. But that's the thing, like, can he get out of his own way?
I don't think so. And that's the Drake one is an example I bring up all the time. And last year with Le'Veon Bell, he struggled behind a bad offensive line, but the amount of times that he would run him in the A gap on 1st and 10, gain 1 yard, and then you're 2nd and 9, does it again, and now you're setting up in 3rd and long with a 22-year-old quarterback with an awful offensive line. It's a recipe for disaster, and their offense was brutal last year, and he just wouldn't adjust from that game plan.
Yeah, and it with the Dolphins, it was bubble screens. The
Okay.
man loved to bubble screen, tackle for a loss. Let's try it again. It's like, Mike, come on.
Yep.
Like, just, and that's the thing that always drove me nuts about him. If his team had over 100 yards rushing and the quarterback threw for like about 25 times, he had like a 10-3 record,
Mm-hmm.
but he would never run the ball and he would force his quarterbacks to throw. And he just lost. And it always dumbfounded me that he was always just so stubborn that he thinks that his passing game is like the next, Bill Walsh thing or something like
Right.
that.
No, exactly. I think we're pretty much on the same page. And transitioning now a little bit to on the Jets side of things. So, from the Dolphins fan perspective, when you hear the team, the Jets, or like, what do you think about for 20? Obviously, we're division rivals, but when you think about like the roster and stuff for 2020, what are some of your takeaways?
It's funny too because I live in Jersey. I'm
Oh, okay.
literally about 20 minutes from the stadium,
Oh, no way.
and I, in all honesty, absolutely loved the Jets draft. You guys
Mhm.
stole the offensive lineman that I wanted. I was hoping and praying the Dolphins were going to trade up and get him just this big, bruising, physical, speedy like lineman. It's just you guys grabbed that great safety. Like you guys were doing really well. Perryman, like you guys had a very good draft. I don't know what it is about the Jets. It's kind of the same thing with the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk about that because I know you want to get to that, but it doesn't scare me.
That's fair.
I think it's because last year we were 0-7 and we beat the Jets, and it was
Yeah.
just like they never scare me. When you guys had Rex Ryan, all right, I was a little bit like, oh, you guys have a really good defense, and you
Mhm.
had LaDainian Tomlinson. But right now, like, I'm probably going to piss off a lot of your subscribers, but it just, I don't know why. It's just like, all right, we'll probably split the series. Like, we'll win one.
Yeah.
I know for a fact the Dolphins will win one game, if not both, but it doesn't scare me.
No, I think that's completely reasonable. To be honest with you, the Jets don't deserve the benefit of the doubt based on the last 4 years or so. At this point, I agree. I think the Jets and Dolphins split this year. I think each team wins their home game, which is exactly how it went last year. But I don't think you're off base. I think these teams are. I have them pretty close. In where they're at in their development. I think.
Yeah, yeah. They're like I said, it's all depends on Adam Gase for you guys. Like
Yep.
in all honesty, if they get off come midpoint, if they're like a 2-6 team, I don't see him making it to the end of the season. I think Adam Gase would probably get pushed out as well because he needs to produce. It's been too long of him being on teams where he uses excuses,
Yep.
like with Ryan Tannehill. Okay, we had the injury, but then he came back and it's like, oh, this and that. Now Sam Bradford, it's like, well, he doesn't have wide receivers and he doesn't have an offensive line. And it's just like, how many times can this man come up with excuses until he just looks in the mirror and says, I need to change?
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the injuries too, because it was an issue in Miami and now it's made its way to the Jets. And I wonder like what that is. Like the Jets starting wide receivers the other day in practice was like Josh Malone and an undrafted free agent they found out of West Virginia. Like we no one's have heard of these guys. How does it continue to happen with these Adam Gase teams where it's just injuries every year?
It's like he brings like the worst strength and conditioning coaches with
I
him
think
and he
so.
just like feeds them Funyuns and like ring dings and stuff.
So also, you guys know Dowell Loggins pretty well. Uh, how is he still in the NFL? Is my
I have
question.
no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea. He's absolutely horrible.
yeah. I don't know how. When you looked at what he did with the Dolphins, and then Adam Gase is like, oh, let me run that back again. That just goes along with the stubbornness thing that I think again we're on the same page with.
Yeah, it's just like if you go look at the year that he was the Dolphins offensive coordinator, we were horrible.
Yeah,
And it's just like why bring him anywhere?
yeah,
It makes no sense, like you said.
yeah, totally. So with that, let's talk AFC East a little bit and where we're expecting. So if you had to do divisional standings, what are your expectations for the year?
Um, it's funny too because I had a few other guys on my channel. We were trying to like decipher this. I honestly think that the Bills, as of right now, are dangerous.
Hmm.
I think the Patriots are always dangerous because they have Bill Belichick. Don't sleep on the Dolphins. Like I don't expect the Dolphins to come out and have a 12-4 season and go from worst to first or blow people out of the water. I do expect them to be incredibly competitive, and I expect them to win more games than a lot of people think they will. And don't be surprised they make the playoffs. Um, and then the Jets, the same as the Jets. You never know. You never know with these teams. But I would probably say like, if a gun to my head right now, I'd probably say like, I don't have high hopes for the Patriots. Like
Okay.
people want to like talk them up and people want to say like, oh, Cam Newton this, Cam Newton that. You know what? I'm going out on a limb. I'm going to say Bills 1, Dolphins 2, Patriots 3, Jets 4.
Okay. Wow. I'm gonna stick with the Patriots as the division winner. At 10, I think only 10 wins this division. I don't think you're gonna see
Yeah.
anything, with a team at 11 or more wins. And Buffalo's right there. I think they're like a 9 or a 10 win team. Also, I think, it really relies on how much of a leap Josh Allen's gonna take forward. I'm not the biggest Josh Allen guy. Like coming out of the draft too, I was kind of hoping the Jets weren't gonna take Josh Allen.
Mhm.
I think he needs to do a little bit more as a passer. But and then after that, I think the Jets and Dolphins are close. I have them both around like that 7 win mark.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, I would say that's probably like I haven't done my prediction yet, and
Mhm.
I normally do it like the day or two before the season starts, but I'm around there for the Dolphins. I'd say like the lowest they'll probably go is probably about like you said, like 7-9. And I could see like the best they'll do this season, maybe like a 10-6, 11-5. Not even, I'd say 10-6 is probably the best they'll do. My thing with Buffalo, and again, I said before that they're as of right now, they're probably like the most dangerous because you look on paper, we haven't
Right.
seen preseason, but they're the Buffalo Bills. So don't
Exactly.
be surprised. Like you said, your prediction isn't that far off either, but I would even say like don't be surprised if the Bills just fall off. And if any Bills fans are watching this, they're probably like, "You're out of your mind because we added this person, that person, we have these people coming back, all this stuff." It hasn't been since the '90s. They've put together back-to-back winning seasons.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills are the Buffalo Bills. Like you could take all the offense you want to that. I'm not lying. Like
No, that's the
they,
thing. They have to prove it first, and that's why I have the Patriots 1. Until they prove otherwise, I have to go with them. I just can't get around that.
exactly, and like that's why when you said that, I'm like, that's why mine was going out on a limb.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like right field predictions, but 100%, like, and people can, and it's so funny because people can come at us and like Bills fans and say, "Look, you both your teams suck," and we're like, "Yeah, of course." But thing is, you haven't owned up to your team sucking for the past 20 years,
Right.
so like we have.
Right. No, absolutely. I will be the first to admit how bad the Jets have been since really the Rex Ryan era. But any any final thoughts on just NFL season going into 2020 or expectations?
It's going to be weird. It's going to be without the fans. Like the Dolphins already said that the Bills game there's going to be a capacity of 13,000 fans, but that's still going
Okay.
to be weird.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a Chargers game.
Right. You're not wrong.
It's gonna be a little bit weird, and now they're trying to have this protocol where a certain decibel of fan noise is going to be pumped into the stadium.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's going to take about 5 weeks for them to get into the groove of thing. And don't be surprised if you see a lot more injuries when it comes to ACLs, hamstrings, and stuff like that, because they did not have any conditioning all off season. You took OTAs, minicamp, and training camp, and you put it into 40 days. It's going to be a hot mess.
Yeah, it's. I think we're gonna see a lot of craziness. I think some teams who are expected to do well this year might take a little bit of a step back, and there might be some surprise teams just because it's the unknown for this year.
Yeah, definitely, and we have to see how it impacts if someone gets sick, someone
Yep.
tests positive. How that's why, like there was the rumor coming around that Josh Rosen's on the trade block, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins kept all three quarterbacks because, God forbid, Tua and Fitz all of a sudden test positive. Maybe it's a false positive, but they're out for that Sunday. Who do the
Yeah.
Dolphins have? It's like it's crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely, and like you said, it makes a ton of sense to keep Rosen around as that extra body, and I think, like you said, it's going to be a very interesting season for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just wanted to thank you again, Douglas, for coming on with me. It's been an absolute blast. You could check his channel out at Dougley Do Wrong on YouTube and on social media. Thanks again for coming on with me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's a blast. I'll be sure to have you on the channel before we play the Jets, get some of your insight, some previews. We'll do this again. It's so fun.
Absolutely, sounds good.